Welcome, everyone, to the Thursday edition of Fair Territory. I'm Ken Rosenthal here with Alanna Rizzo. And Alanna, it's still really early. About 1/10 of the season is complete. Yet, we've seen some disappointing teams, and we want to get into some of those things. We want to get into Aaron Judge, Aaron Nola. We want to talk about a lot today, but let's start with some of those disappointing teams and managers potentially on the hot seat.
Yeah, Ken, great to be with you as always on this Thursday. And that's where we're going to start the lead today on Fair Territory with Ken Rosenthal. You talked about the fact that it's early, Ken, but there are four managers in particular in your mind that may be looking for work sooner rather than later.
I don't know that it will be sooner rather than later. And as I wrote the other day, I had a column about managers and their statuses. I actually listed 9. Not that I think all of them are in trouble immediately, but these are 9 managers that potentially could be in danger at some point. And I made the point in the column that since 2018, there have only been 3 managers fired in the first half of a season. All were in 2022. So it doesn't happen very often anymore. But the reason we're talking about this is because we're seeing some disappointing teams, as you mentioned. Pittsburgh, obviously. Colorado, obviously. The 2 bigger ones, the 2 more interesting situations are in Baltimore and Minnesota. Now, Minnesota, if you remember last year, they finished the season 12-27. They've started kind of the same way this year. They're 7-12. Now, the last 2 days have been better. They've lost Matt Wallner to an injury. Correa's got a problem now. Willie Castro potentially an issue as well. So that could change things. But when you start like this, after a finish like that, there are going to be questions, and that's why Rocco Baldelli is facing some questions right now. Baltimore, also disappointing. They are 7-12, like Minnesota. I don't see them as quite the same, because to me, Baltimore's problems are more related to roster construction and the way they rebuilt the rotation after losing Corbin Burns. But there's a lot of frustration among their fans right now with a lot of things. So I don't expect Mike Elias, the GM, to fire Brandon Hyde, but these teams, when they're disappointing early like this, and the Orioles too, they didn't finish last year terribly well. The questions come up and you wonder what exactly is going on and if there is something in the dynamic that does need to change.
Ken, there's been some reports out there from numerous folks that say that Brandon Hyde perhaps is starting to lose the Orioles clubhouse a little bit. Some rumblings perhaps about calling certain players out, Tyler O'Neill, in fact, or kind of the lineup construction and the constant movement of that. I mean, is there any truth to that in what you're hearing?
I'm not sure. And when we talk about losing a clubhouse, you never have all 26 on your side. So the question is, how many are not on your side at any one time? Now, I will say this. If indeed there is merit to this argument that Hyde is losing the clubhouse, then that's a real issue. But it's a younger team for the most part, and they are trying to find the best spots for guys like Jackson Holliday and Heston Kjerstad to succeed. And sometimes that means changing the lineup up to remove them against certain pitchers, left-handers, for instance. So again, it's early. Hyde has been a stalwart there. He was there for the bad times. He stuck around. Mike Elias deserves credit for keeping him around when they became good again and not going to a bigger name manager. So again, I have a hard time seeing him as the main problem right now. And if they start hitting it and if their pitching settles down a little bit, a lot of this talk will diminish. But I just wonder with this team, if their rotation is ever going to be in a place where they're fully comfortable. Now, their injuries have mounted, right? Grayson Rodriguez is out. Zach Eflin is out. Kyle Bradish not expected back until the second half. Same with Tyler Wells. We all get that. But this is the way the team was built, too. And they signed Charlie Morton. They signed Sugano, who's been okay. Again, let's let it play out before we pass any judgment. But if indeed the clubhouse becomes an issue for Brandon Hyde, then yes, you're talking about something else entirely.
Yeah, to be clear, you're not saying that these firings are imminent, just something to watch out for. And oftentimes, Ken, it's the manager that happens to be the scapegoat. Regardless of the way that the team is performing, he's usually the one to go. In Colorado's case, Bud Black, as we know, was on a year-to-year deal. And also with that ownership group, I mean, who else would be better suited to be the manager of that team that seems to constantly be in a rebuild type of situation? And they have a DH that now apparently has a degenerative back issue where they put a bunch of money into, and it's just a team of really young guys. But who else besides Bud Black could lead that team to a better than 500 record?
There actually is someone that might be a more suitable fit for a younger team. Now, Bud Black, everyone loves Bud Black. Let's not mistake that for 1 second. He is highly respected within that organization and outside that organization. But Warren Schaefer, the third base coach, is a former minor league manager with the Rockies. He's dealt with a lot of these younger guys, and perhaps it's simply time for a new voice there. Now, I'm not saying it would happen during the season. And Alanna, you make the point also, in the age we live in, yes, managers are often scapegoated, but we all know that it's a collaborative process with statistical analysts, with front office members. Managing is not simply running the game and that's it. So that's why there is less scapegoating, because the GMs know that they're partly responsible for these things too. At the same time, Bud Black is year to year, and you wonder at the end of this year if they finally say, hey, Bud, maybe it's time, and maybe Bud wants to move on to something else. So that's certainly a question that is going to continue to fester because this team is not playing well at all.
And the Minnesota Twins, Ken, they're not playing well either. Rocco Bodelli, the manager there, the skipper, of course, for the Twins, and perhaps is, the decreasing amount of attendance and just poor attendance. Does that have anything to do with a managerial change at times?
There's a lot going on in Minnesota. And you're right, declining attendance. They're trying to sell subscriptions to a new streaming service. The team is for sale. All of this plays some role in a front office's decision making, but to what extent, that probably varies. I can't say for sure that that's going to affect anything with Minnesota. And Derek Falvey, the president of baseball operations, has had a very close relationship with Baldelli, much like Mike Elias has had a very close relationship with Brandon Hyde. And I should mention as well that Mike Elias came out the other day and vocally supported Brandon Hyde, said he's doing fine. So that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but at the same time, he did say it. So getting back to Minnesota, I don't know that any of the things that we just talked about, the attendance, the television situation, the ownership situation, will affect Baldelli and the way he is viewed as much as just the way the team is performing. And if they continue and build upon what they've done the first two games against the Mets, then okay, it's a slow start. And they're back to being the Minnesota Twins, a team that should be a force in the AL Central. If not, then it becomes a different question.
Yeah, it's interesting to see because the tandem is usually the GM and the manager. So you're right. If they get rid of that guy, they're also admitting, Ken, that they've made a mistake. Much more to come here on Fair Territory with Ken Rosenthal. We're going to be back in just a moment after a word from our friends at Foul Territory on PXG.
AJ, it is time for people to get some new clubs, and to do that, they need to go to their local PXG for a fitting, right?
No doubt. I was there today. I've been there before. Last time I was there, they gave me this killer gap wedge. Look at that sweet spot, Scott. It is worn out. That is right in the sweet spot right there. So I went and got new clubs today, new irons. But more importantly, I got this bad boy. I got me a new putter. This is my old putter. It's on order. Yes, that's my putter cover. PXG Mustang putter. Now I'm going to the Allen putter. They talked me into it because I was draining some putts today. Bob, the guy who helped me out, he helped me with my irons. He got them teed up perfectly. But then we went to the putting green. I was draining them putts because that's the most important part of golf.
PXG fittings are fun. Schedule your fitting today. As you can hear from AJ, for a limited time, you could save up to 20% on your entire order. Head over to pxg.com/foul. That's pxg.com/foul to save up to 20% on your entire order. pxg.com/FOUL. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Deal. 20% off of your entire order. We appreciate PXG for being a part of the program. And as you mentioned, Ken, as long as AJ Pierzynski has the right clubs, all is right in the world. Speaking of things going right, Ken Rosenthal, the New York Yankees, Aaron Judge has been doing just fine without having Juan Soto in that lineup. I tell you what, it seems like it was a good deal for Juan Soto, but it seems like it was a better deal as well for New York.
It's interesting to see the Yankees perform at this level offensively when that was really their biggest question, I thought, going into the season. And I thought their rotation would be a strength. Right now, with the injuries, it's not as much of a strength. Judge has been amazing. And I want to look at and show people what he has done over his first 18 games versus his first 18 games last year when, if you might recall, he was the American League MVP. Judge has been out of sight great this season. 409 batting average, 519 on base, 803 slugging, 7 home runs. That compares to last year when he started so slowly. He was hitting 182 after 18 games, had only 3 homers. The on base was not what it is now, nor was the slug. So we can dream on Aaron Judge and wonder just how far he can take this year. And the other interesting element, of course, that surfaced this week was Juan Soto's comment that, you know what, I'm not seeing the pitches. I'm not seeing as many pitches in the zone as I was last year because I was in front of the best hitter on the planet. And Juan Soto acknowledged that Aaron Judge was that. I would concur with his opinion, even though Juan Soto is the $765 million man. The Yankees are quite an interesting team, and they've had some things happen offensively that maybe they didn't expect. Austin Wells, Ben Rice, Trent Grisham, Jazz Chisholm at times. So they look like still, even with Cole down, even with Hill out, the best team in the American League. I'm not sure it will end that way, of course, but they are a team that was recalibrated after losing Soto. They brought in Goldschmidt, who has been good, Bellinger, and now they look like a pretty formidable Yankees club.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to beat them, certainly in the AL East. And to your point, perhaps the best team in the junior circuit. And a very interesting series coming up for the Bronx Bombers, not in the Bronx, Ken. They're going to their spring training facility as they get ready to take on the Tampa Bay Rays at Steinbrenner Field. What are you watching for in this particular set?
I'm watching to see how many home runs are hit, Alanna, because we have seen at Steinbrenner Field it play a little bit small. Now, the first series against Colorado, there weren't that many home runs hit. I'll show you the stats right here. And people thought, well, maybe this place won't play the way we think. First 3 games, combined total of home runs by both clubs, just 3. The last 12 games, 38 homers have been hit. And the place is playing small. Without a second and third deck, the wind is more of a factor one way or the other. And if it's blowing out, obviously that's an issue. And keep in mind, this ballpark has the same dimensions as Yankee Stadium, and it seems to be playing really small to the areas where Yankee Stadium already plays small, right center and right field. So I'm going to be interested to see just how many home runs are hit in this series and how odd it is for the Yankees to be dressing in the visiting clubhouse at the place where they are always in the home clubhouse all spring.
Yeah, the entire situation is just bizarre. Perhaps not as bizarre as the Athletics in Sacramento, but it has to be a bit of a strange feeling to go to your spring training facility here at the end of April. Don't forget to get your questions in for Grillin Ken here on Fair Territory with Ken Rosenthal. We have that coming up momentarily. But before we get to Grillin Ken, what do you make of the early season struggles for Philadelphia's ace, Aaron Nola?
I'm not sure what to make of it, but I would say that at this point, I'm not all that concerned. The cold weather has been an issue for pitchers. There's no question about that. It's an issue for velocity. It's an issue for command, all of that. So he's off to a slow start. There's no doubt. Zach Wheeler hasn't been his normal dominant self either, but Nola has had bigger problems. 3 bases loaded walks already. That's not Aaron Nola. And he said after last night's game, yes, I need to be better. I need to clean it up. The only concern I have for the Phillies long-term about this group is that it is getting older. And I would not say that Aaron Nola is old. This is his age 32 season. I would not say that Zach Wheeler is old. It's his age 35 season, but we've seen many pitchers pitched well into their late 30s and even early 40s at a high level. My concern, if there is one, is that Nola and Wheeler since 2018 rank first and second in the majors in regular season innings pitched. they've thrown a lot. Now, they've been durable. They've been guys that you can trust. That's why they were re-signed by the Phillies to massive deals. But you wonder, all players have an expiration date. I'm not saying these two are approaching that, but you wonder whether the decline comes at some point for Nola, for Wheeler, for some of their other players who are now in their 30s. And I'm not saying it would happen even this year, and I'm not saying that what Nola is going through right now is a reflection of that. It's just kind of in the back of my mind when I think about the Phillies and just where they are, not just for this season, but the ones beyond.
Yeah, we're so used to Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler being money every time they take the ball, Ken. When they have these early season struggles, you certainly have a microscope on them. No question about that. Okay, get your questions in for Grillin Ken. It is now time to grill Ken Rosenthal. All right, Ken, our first question is in regards to the Toronto Blue Jays, more specifically Bo Bichette. Matthew wants to know if the Blue Jays can't re-sign Bo Bichette, of course, coming off of Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s really nice contract. What do you think his trade value is?
I will answer that question with a question. Why would you want to trade Bo Bichette? The Blue Jays are playing well. They look like a team that could be a surprise, at least compared to the expectations that people had for them going into the season. They've always been talented, but they're playing at a pretty high level. So if they're in contention, I see no way they're trading Bo Bichette. And if Bo Bichette is a huge part of what they're doing, why, again, would they trade him? If they were going to trade either Bichette or Guerrero, it would have happened long ago, and they held both, and they were kind of adamant about it. They were like, nope, we're keeping these guys to free agency, whether we re-sign them or not. They, of course, re-signed Guerrero. Bichette is more of an open question. So I don't expect that move to even be considered if they're in contention. If they fall out of it, okay. But keep in mind, too, it's hard to fall out of contention when you got 12 teams making the postseason. Yeah, the Rockies are out of contention. The White Sox are out of contention. But many other teams will be in.
No question about that. With the way that the format is for the postseason, it's almost like the NBA. Everybody gets in. All right, Ken, the next question. Are there any early season standouts to you so far here? Pretty early, as you mentioned, 1/10 of the way through on April 17th. Anybody that you have your eye on that perhaps was a bit of a surprise for you?
I don't know that I would call him a surprise, but Jung-Hoo Lee is looking really good for the Giants. He's the guy that they signed entering last season. Of course, he was kind of struggling early, then he got hurt. But he has been a revelation for a team that has been perhaps the biggest surprise of all. And as for players playing at a high level, he's one of them. But in the National League, my gosh, we've got Tatis, we've got Ohtani, again, we've got a host of others who are looking like MVP candidates, and it's kind of cool to see.
Okay, next question comes from Bernie Suarez, and this is in regards to the Chicago Cubs. He wants to know, do you think that sending Shaw down was perhaps an overreaction by Chicago?
Bernie, this is an interesting question, and I would not call it an overreaction. I would call it a reflection of their urgency. And some people have noted, well, they're more urgent this year. Jed Hoyer's in the last year of his contract. Okay, maybe that's the case, but they should be in an urgent situation every year. They traded for Kyle Tucker. Yes, that's an urgent type move. Good. Matt Shaw, not the first player to get sent down who had a big reputation coming in. Mike Trout was sent down, if you might recall. So I don't see it as an overreaction. I see it as them trying to get him right, and they still view him as an important part of their future. This is a temporary blip.
All right, you mentioned Kyle Tucker. Omar has a question for you about Kyle Tucker. Do you think he will actually be extended or hit free agency? Now, there was a report, obviously, that they were going to extend him. It hasn't been made official, certainly. Do you think the Chicago Cubs want Kyle Tucker for the long haul, or does he hit free agency?
They want him for the long haul, I'm sure, but I don't know that the talks with him so far have been anything even close to serious. And the Guerrero contract, the $500 million over 14 years, changed the landscape for Kyle Tucker considerably. His price is going up, and it's going up because even though he's 2 years older than Guerrero, he is a more well-rounded player. Even Vlad fans would not disagree with that. So I fully expect him to hit free agency, and I fully expect him to be outside the Cubs price range.
Okay, and Hall of Fame question for you, Ken Rosenthal. Do you have a favorite section or part of the experience when you go to Cooperstown? This is from Dr. Cole. He's going, apparently. Their time is limited, and he hears that it can take 1 or more days to see it all. Is there a section that Dr. Cole and his family must see?
Well, I'm sure they will see the section that I'm going to mention, the Hall of Plaques, and where everybody is honored and where you can see the different biographies of the Hall of Famers on their plaques. Now, I must admit, I have not been to Cooperstown all that much. Once as a kid, and then again for Jason Stark when he was awarded the BBWAA Career Excellence Award. And the reason I don't go enough is because it always falls right around the trade deadline. And I just cannot spare the travel and time that it takes to get there. But the few times I've been there, it is a really cool experience. Cooperstown is a lovely place. And sure, the hall is where the plaques are. I know it's got a name and it's eluding me right now, but that's the action. That's where to be.
All right. And I assumed Dr. Cole was a man. I wanted to make sure that I said Dr. Cole could be bringing her son to Cooperstown. So enjoy the experience. Cooperstown is a wonderful place. The Plaque Gallery, Ken, I think is what you are talking about. All right. We're going to come back with Dude and Dork of the Week. But first, a quick word from our friends at Foul Territory on StoryWorth.
Kratz, Mother's Day is around the corner. Do not overlook it. And you need to go the extra mile for Ma. I'm talking to everyone out there. Gift idea. Go.
Easy. StoryWorth. Scrapbook with stories. You get pictures, stories. You send it out to people. They put their stories in there. It's super easy. They guide you through the whole thing, and it's a keepsake for life.
Right. They'll email you questions. You respond with an epic story. Everyone needs this, right? And StoryWorth makes it so much easier. And that's why it has more than 40,000 five-star reviews on Trustpilot with millions of stories preserved since they were founded over 10 years ago. Give all the moms in your life a unique, heartfelt gift you'll all cherish for years. StoryWorth right now. Save $10 on your first purchase when you go to storyworth.com/foul. That's storyworth.com/foul to save $10 on your first purchase. Mother's Day is coming soon. Do not overlook it. Get it done.
Dude.
Okay, Dude of the Week. Can I get to shout out a person, an organization, what have you? So I'm going to go ahead and start with my Dude of the Week first, if you don't mind. I'm going to go with Mike Trout. And the reason, Ken, that I say Mike Trout is because a lot of people could have handled this situation poorly. And Mike Trout, the class act that he is, obviously, when the Angels were playing against the Houston Astros, an Astros fan kind of leaned over, grabbed the ball out of Mike Trout's glove. However, the fan, I think, handled it appropriately. You could tell that he was very remorseful. And after the game, Mike Trout went with and met the gentleman and his son and just handled it, I believe, with absolute pure class. Again, it was a little bit going back to the postseason when the Dodgers and the Yankees played in the World Series, and those Yankee fans grabbed Mookie's wrist, and that was not appropriate. Again, stop going into the field of play and stop trying to grab baseballs. Get out of the way. But I do believe that Mike Trout handled it appropriately. Mike Trout is healthy. Mike Trout is playing well. The Angels are playing well, and it's good to see. Mike Trout is my Dude of the Week. Ken, you have a guy behind the plate that you wanted to give a shout out to.
I do, and we give umpires, all of us, a lot of heat. We're always on top of them. We're always critical of them when they perform poorly. But when an umpire gets a perfect score for his plate job, according to the Umpire Accuracy website, that's pretty good. And here's Mark Rippiger. He got one. 100% accuracy. Good for him, man. That's awesome. As long as it's awesome that he could pull that off on the scorecard's judgment. Now, you don't know if MLB's grading system is the same, but that's really good. Hats off to Mark, and a great job by him behind the plate.
No doubt about that. I love looking at those scorecards, and it's a lot different now that Angel Hernandez is no longer behind the plate, but that is neither here nor there, Ken Rosenthal. It is time now for our John Fisher Dork of the Week. Ken, and you and I have a time here to usually each get to go. But I think you and I have the same sentiment that the dork of the week was worth both of us talking about the same person. For me, I have to say I have a personal reason why I think this person is the situation is our dork of the week. Wiley Ballard in the Braves broadcast for asking for a fan's number on air. Now, this is the sideline reporter on FanDuel Sports Network for the Atlanta Braves. And I usually don't like calling out our colleagues, but the reason this person is the dork of the week, or this situation rather, is the dork of the week is he went into the stands. He's doing a sideline report. He's talking to these two lovely ladies, and he ends up getting her phone number on the air. And again, I understand I'm old lady yelling at clouds in this situation. But as a woman in this industry, had I done that, my job would have been I probably would have lost my job. The reason is there's a double standard for men and women in this industry. And had I gone into the stands and I was getting somebody's number, it would have been probably looked down upon. And I know this has even gone national. There's national people talking about this situation. A lot of people are saying, have fun, lighten up. But if you look at the women in this industry, Ken, and I know that you've been around us for a very long time, there's not a woman in this industry, for the most part, a credible woman in this industry that doesn't think that that was inappropriate. And I'd like to hear your thoughts about it.
Well, that kind of hits where I was going to go. And yes, people talk about this is fun, lighten up. Well, it's fun from maybe a male's perspective, and it might even be fun from certain females' perspectives. But if you looked on X after this happened, virtually every woman who is either a print reporter or a television reporter had a very strong reaction to it, a very strong negative reaction to it. Now, it's the situation. It's not just Wiley Ballard. It's the whole broadcast. Everybody was kind of involved. And listen, I'm all for having fun on a broadcast. When I watched this, I thought, why is this even on a baseball broadcast to begin with? It had nothing to do with the context of the game. But when you talk about fun and it extends into a situation where you're making people uncomfortable, either people watching or either people who have done the job and are aware of what's going on, and when you stretch the boundaries of what is professional behavior for a reporter, then you're talking about something else. Now, this incident, compared to other incidents that are more aggressive or violent or whatever, it doesn't rise to that level. We all get it. And there are degrees of things. And on live television, Alanna, you know this, sometimes things can get away from you. And that appears to be, in my opinion, what happened here, though no one with that broadcast seemed to feel bad about it. But what I'm talking about here is what you said, the double standard, and a certain respect and sensitivity and kindness and fairness that needs to exist in judging people. And people will say, well, I've seen this. Hey, if a woman did it, no problem. It's just as fun if she does it. Really? When a woman sideline reporter, when her face appears on television, there are people who will reach out to her on Twitter. I've seen this. You see it all the time. Hey, we don't need you. You're a woman. Mm-hmm. So don't tell me behavior like that would have been accepted. What I'm saying here is we have to take a step back and understand, hey, a woman couldn't do that. A woman would be looked at differently for that. And when you think of it that way, this should not have happened.
I appreciate that. And I also appreciate all of our male colleagues, Evan Grant, for one, who covers the Rangers, coming out and saying the same thing. Again, I'm not trying to be old woman yelling at clouds, but there's a time and a place for that. It's usually at a bar. It's not on a broadcast. And again, if I would have done that, it would have been interpreted incredibly differently. So for everybody, thank you for your questions for Ken, and thank you for listening to Dude and Dork of the Week. Before we say goodbye, we want to certainly shout out our friends at BetMGM. Before we let you go, let's shout out the BetMGM First Bet $1,500 offer when you use the bonus code FOUL. Get this offer when you download the BetMGM Sportsbook app or at BetMGM.com. Sign up, enter that bonus code FOUL, and deposit at least $10 into your new account. Place your first wager and receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if the bet loses. If the bet does lose, your bonus bets will be available once your initial wager is settled. Gambling problem or concern, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Thanks for watching, everybody. That's going to do it for this episode of Fair Territory with Ken Rosenthal. Foul Territory is next. Scott Service is on the program. AJ Prusinski, Eric Kratz, Scott Braun, host. Jesse Friedman, Snakes Territory host. And Michaela Bennett joined those guys over there. And the Dodgers Territory follows today. We have Trevor May on our show. It's myself and Clint Pasillas. Ken will be back on a brand new episode of Fair Territory on Monday. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.